All right, man. Peace. One thing's for certain that I always express on this page, in which I usually just give my regular old opinion about it, whether you want to say it's red pill, black pill, and all these other things. I'm just here to give critiques and all these different things of what I think in society is going on. Such as so, a lot of the times, these conversations about red pill and women this, modern day women that, and blah, 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 red pill men, alpha men, manosphere men, and all these different things out here. It's such a funny time to be alive, where the man feels it's his duty in order to buy a bunch of mics, set up a studio, and then be able to get these modern day women on these podcasts who are usually affiliated with the old so popular website OnlyFans to sit in a group of about 5 to 10 girls, because obviously men love looking at women, and being able to let them dress scantily clad and then be able to make remarks about them having an OnlyFans to convince them that they shouldn't be doing what they're doing if they want a man. A high value man, these dudes usually say, which is completely ridiculous. And in my assessment along this YouTube journey, whether I'm on panels or whether I'm just being able to analyze things from the outside looking in, I see an ever so growing trend of ridiculous content that's coming from a lot of these fellas that is not really doing anything to have a proper conversation where it's supposed to be geared towards men. A lot of the times, these so-called alpha men that own these podcasts and stuff like that are doing it for the fact that they want women's validation, but they try to mask it as teaching men how to be better men. And in my opinion, mainly because right now, who's at the stake of the growing up generation, which is Generation Z, and soon come probably in the next 5 to 10 years, Generation Alpha, they don't give a shit about half the things you do just talking about. I shout outs to one of the content creators that had a conversation with me about the millennials and how the millennial culture sucks ass. Well, the thing about it is this: at the end of the day, what we have to realize is it's more than likely that women is going to move with the advances in society. Obviously, we understand that when it comes to a woman, she's going to go with the program that's set in society, and a man is going to be more conservative than how the woman is. It is what it is. Now, of course, you'll see in my screen, they adopt themselves into these different various trends that's online, such as the soft girl aesthetics or the baddie and all these different things. And whatever it takes for a woman to get money off of her assets, that's what she's going to do. Understanding as men, we need to establish boundary and be able to tell ourselves if a woman doesn't want to be on our program, that's it and that's all. Why fight about it? Why make a podcast about it? Why complain? You understand what I'm saying? But today, I just decided to go over this article myself, which ironically is written by a woman, the New York Post, in which they're sitting up there alluding to the fact of the matter, today's television program, I'm saying today's television program is, of course, on the internet, in which much so than less that it is very popular for these podcasts, especially podcast men, to make women look dumb. And do I agree with that? I would say 50-50 on that. And I'm not talking like 50-50 relationship and stuff like that. I'm talking 50-50, where it's true and it's also false, because there's always pros and cons to everything in life. You understand? So with this article that I'm going to be reading, I'll give some commentary along the way. So Pete, shout outs to Brooke Cato. Making women look dumb is a disturbing new podcast trend. And, I understand a lot of people want to be able to go online, express themselves, have the willpower to be able to say what's on their mind. And, the funny thing, in my opinion, about a lot of these new podcasts that's springing up, which I believe is the new music industry, it's more likely you're going to come across a podcast than you come across somebody with new music. My thing about it is like this: to a lot of the gentlemen that start up all these podcasts and, such. Yeah, it's the idea of belittling usually the women that's in their prime, more or less, the women that's usually in their early 20s and stuff like that. If it goes further, late 20s and at most early 30s. But of course, if you check out podcasts like Fresh and Fit, they'll usually feature women who's usually in their 30s and to the telltale in their early 40s and still attractive, maybe don't even have kids. But with this being said, the thing about it is certain dudes that lie, I believe that they're lying, in which they say that their whole entire message is to target the young men. The young men need to learn discipline. They have to learn not to entertain whores, not to entertain women that are all about their assets and not about their mindsets. You understand? Because the way that this society is going, they always want to adopt this idea of asexualism and giving a man more of a fluid option when it comes to dealing with a mate. Check out a lot of my videos. I go over those type of concepts a lot of time. Neutralizing a man's sexuality, having a man become okay with dealing with someone who is more feminine or fluid in order to detract themselves from dealing with actual women. And what's funny about that is I actually found this clip the other day in which there's this man who decided to become gay based off of the fact of inheriting a lot of this red pill content and also being an ex-incel because he felt as if women were too repulsive for him to deal with. Funny how that story goes. So it says here, For Shame, a podcast with hundreds of thousands of subscribers and followers across online platforms are stoking the flames of controversy by belittling female guests and making them look dumb. Whatever, hosted by Brian Atlas, masquerades as a dating talk show while delving into gender roles, body counts, and the legitimacy of the patriarchy. The podcast team uses social media to seek women panelists, only to later roast them online in snippets, pandering to the virality of the inflammatory hot takes. In other words, it's perfect clickbait. And with that being said, what's really ironic about a lot of these like dating talk shows and a lot of these dating podcasts? We're living in a time where birth rates are low. A lot of people are finding themselves lonely. And especially if you look at one of my videos, they also had talked about the loneliness pandemic, how a lot more people are alone these days or lonely more than they are entertaining someone or dating. So it's very ironic. A lot of these dating shows come up out of nowhere and, they're having this conversation about how to date, marriage, and all this other stuff. When in my opinion, half of these people don't give a shit about trying to marry someone or even have kids, but teach his own. In one episode, the panelists, who are all women, rate themselves as 10s, much to Atlas' shock. I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to rate you guys, but none of you are a 10. He says in response, prompting a chorus of agreement in the comments by users cruelly joking about the women's weight and appearance. In another, Atlas grills the panelists on their body count and how many people they've been intimate with and is met with resistance. It doesn't matter to me, but it matters to you guys, one woman said, gesturing to the men sitting across the table. So I'm not going to go put myself out here and say my body count is just for you two to ridicule me or something. While OnlyFans model Nicolette Nicole admitted that her appearance on the podcast was to bolster her own following, she told Vice that the clips were definitely chosen to create controversy and make her look dumb and shame her. Well, the funny thing about a lot of these women that come on these podcasts, and even if you're not just going on to whatever podcast, you're also going on things like Fresh and Fit, you make yourself look like an ass. You understand that? Much to the same dismay that a lot of women had said when the popular YouTuber Kevin Samuels was alive. You make yourself look like an ass. You knew damn well if you was going to go ahead and sign yourself up to become one of the panelists on those podcasts, you knew exactly what was at stake. So usually when I see episodes like this, and then later on, they might make a separate video and they say, oh, I don't like how I was treated, or they shame, or they disrespect me, or they tried to make me look dumb. I sit back and say, you are dumb, naturally, because you decided to go on that podcast anyway, and you knew exactly what the temperature was when your dumb ass sat up there and decided to sit in that chair with a mic in front of you. See, a lot of the times these women can say all these different things about, oh, they're making me look dumb and they're making me look stupid, when you've had plenty of chances to do your research, to find out exactly where you was at, what they're going to be talking about, and what the conversations were going to be about. So whose fault is that? That's yours. And because the fact of the matter, you were doing it for clout, you knew damn well that going on this podcast was going to help you gain your numbers up. If you had an OnlyFans account, how many men were going to find you and want to subscribe to your OnlyFans accounts? That's why I call cap a lot of the times when these women decide to go up on these shows, because the point is not to take you women seriously on that broadcast. And I don't understand how these women don't understand that. Going on, it says, on Twitter and TikTok, the video's provocative one-line captions lured thousands of millions of views. OnlyFans girl gets roasted, the podcast tweeted. They think they are tens. What about with no makeup? Reads another tweet. On Twitter, whatever often promotes videos from conservative commentator Ben Shapiro and champions disgraced internet personality Andrew Tate. Tate has been accused of sexual assault and physical abuse after serving time in a Romanian prison on charges of rape, trafficking, and organized crime. He has declared his innocence. And usually what we have to learn these days is, it's not like how it used to be when you used to have actors, when you used to have music artists and all these different things, where they used to be pretty much the center of attention and they have to go through these hazing rituals in these type of disgraceful rituals or when they got into the limelight. Now they have shifted the celebrities on TVs to the celebrities on YouTube and whatever socialite that's existent on the web. And the thing about that is, I think I need people to pay attention to more of this, to be very aware of a lot of these internet personalities, because just like how you guys understood how it was in the music industry and how it was in the acting industry, it's going to be the same thing when it happens to the internet industry. And what I mean by the internet industry is your popular content creators and all those people, they're part of the game too. So you have to pay very much close attention to a lot of these people that you view, because they could be quote unquote plants. They could be put in there for an entire different objective and all these different things out here in order to bring the society in a certain direction. It's facts. The podcast following has grown amid backlash, with aghast critics slamming the show for talking down to women while dubbing Atlas an Andrew Tate wannabe. Tell me you despise women without telling me you despise women, and don't forget the condescension. One Redditor snarked, "Is it just me, or do all of those women look incredibly uncomfortable?" Wrote another in part. The post has reached out to Atlas for comment. And this young lady right here, Drew Afulo, I'm pretty familiar with this content creator. She's one of those like women that has that bossy type of attitude, and she often trolls a lot of these men's content creators, and she be talking shit in the car and stuff like that. I've seen plenty of YouTubers react to her videos and the things that she says. I mean, obviously, at the end of the day, fellas, women like this are modern day women. I wouldn't even give her the time of the day if my numbers were up there with someone like Atlas or the whatever podcast, and she had something to say about one of my videos. I wouldn't. Modern day women are already objective to be a problem. You understand what I'm saying? They cause a lot of controversy on GP. They have no care in the world. That's how they get their numbers up. So what you're witnessing right now is a bunch of people who decide to put themselves in this quote unquote online gender war. You understand? In order to not really make anything out of it, but to also just get views and be able to spark some type of conversation that just goes in a wormhole and it goes in a circular conversation. That's it. Drew Fulo, a content creator popular for online takedowns of controversial men, responding to clips of the whatever podcast on TikTok. Again, I tell you, this is modern day women. I don't really care for them. I don't care what they talk about. I've seen their clips, but the thing about it is, men, we have to move in a different direction if we want to be the so-called leaders that we say that we want to be. We can blame all these different things about feminism and all these different things, but what we do as men is the ones that shape society. So leaders, so-called men, that say all these different things, women like this, you wouldn't even give attention to. Let her keep talking shit. As long as us as men are doing what we have to do, we're not simping for these lame ass women and all these other people. We get to sit up there and do what we have to do. And pretty much the society will conform if we are on that type of time. Content creator Drew a follow, who counts 8 million TikTok followers thanks to her zingy clapbacks at misogynistic men, has expressed her displeasure for Atlas content. In one clip, a follow stitches a snippet of Atlas calling a female panelist not a 10 in reference to her looks, to which he says, that's just your opinion, which it is his opinion. In response, Atlas continues to reiterate his stance on her attractiveness because it bothers him that it doesn't bother her. In another, a follow responds to a video of the Whatever podcast featuring Atlas claims that men are more oppressed than women, which is true to a certain extent. Why people continue to go on this podcast, I just can't even begin to understand, Afulo said. Fuck this podcast for real. And this is a controversial one when they had the guy, Destiny, and they had this individual over here who got roasted on another podcast, which I found funny. You know, a lot of these men that talk all this shit, alpha men, and, you know, they're high value men, be so full of shit. And I see them all the time, man. I see them all the time. Whatever isn't the first podcast of its kind to ignite frenzied fury online, or as Vice put it, fuel the gender culture war. TikTok and Twitter are flooded with snippet of talk shows, read men in their living rooms with microphones that are prompting women to mock them and beg to stop giving men microphones. Essence Girls United writer Kenyatta Victoria this week pointed out that everyone seems to have a podcast these days, which is true. Podcast is the new music industry. What was once a space where people could report and speak on specific topics with experts has become an opportunity for someone to project their emotions and opinions that don't involve them. Victoria wrote, urging viewers to amplify those who approach the craft ethically and responsibly rather than constantly fueling the ego. Well, if you understand, a lot of times these days, anybody can grab at headphones and grab microphones and stuff like that, set up a spot where they do a podcast, and especially because the cash cow of today is to cause a rift between man and woman. It's also a sign of programming in our society, could be a PSYOP project, and also a way to give down on the idea of depopulation, if not so. Also, telling men and women they shouldn't have to deal with each other and go their separate ways by finding affection and finding different ways of dealing with each other without dealing with each other. And the only time we deal with each other is always in argument or confusion or in just a battle zone. But, you know, much or less, like I said, modern men need to do a better job on where they go. There's no reason to project yourself on a lot of these podcasts. You just need to do you. There's no reason for men to get all upset, which is this one clip that I seen of this man who decided to kick out this woman for saying that he is a 2 by looks. A lot of these dudes need to get out their fifis, man. But otherwise than that, that's just my opinion. Let me know what your thoughts is in the comment section. Remember to like, share, subscribe. Peace.